This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. Have you ever wanted to build an app for yourself, your friends, or finally launch that side project you've been dreaming about? Now you can bring any idea to life, no coding background required, with Gemini 3 in Google AI Studio. It's called vibe coding, and we're making it dead simple. Just describe your app, and Gemini will wire up the right models for you so you can focus on your creative vision. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
What a weird week in AI. I mean, we got arguably one of the most powerful AI models in the world dropped in a tweet. Meta, the open source AI company, might be going closed source. President Donald Trump is trying to take away the state's powers when it comes to AI. Disney is going all in on AI, and the biggest AI competitors are all teaming up for an AI project. It's like backwards week in AI, and it might leave you scratching your head with a couple of questions. Well, we're going to be giving you a lot of answers today on Everyday AI. What's going on, y'all? Welcome. My name is Jordan Wilson, and this is Everyday AI. This is for you. If you've ever felt confused by the onslaught of AI news, well, Everyday AI is for you, but specifically our Monday segment, AI News That Matters. So if you're new here, Everyday AI is a daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter helping everyday business leaders like you and me make sense of all this AI and how we can leverage the practical and actual stuff to grow our companies and our careers. So if that's what you're trying to do, awesome. It starts here with the unedited, unscripted live stream podcast. But to take it to the next level, make sure you go to our website at youreverydayai.com in our free daily newsletter, which you got to go grab on our website. We're going to be recapping the highlights from today's episode, as well as everything else happening in the AI world today. And just a little announcement. Make sure you join us tomorrow and Wednesday. So that is December 16th and December 17th for our 2025 AI Roadmap Rewind. So back in January, we made 25 kind of crazy AI predictions. And here we are. The test is due. Did we fail? Did we lead you astray? Right? Because if you go back and look at it, literally go back and look in the comments, people are like, this is crazy. This isn't going to happen. Right? I think some of it kind of did, but you got to make sure to tune in. We did it originally. It was like 5 really quick shows. We're not going to do 5 recap shows. We're just going to jam it all into 2 shows. So make sure to join us for that. All right, let's get into the AI news that matters for the week of December 15th. And first one, this one's a big head scratcher. Disney and OpenAI shaking hands. So the Walt Disney Company announced a $1 billion investment in OpenAI, making the entertainment giant one of the most prominent legacy media companies to formally partner with a leading AI firm. So this deal grants OpenAI access to Disney's copyrighted characters from franchises including Star Wars, Marvel, and other properties for use in its AI-powered short-form video generator, Sora. Disney plans to allow more than 200 animated characters, along with costumes, props, and accessories to appear in Sora-generated videos that can run up to a minute long. And Disney is going to reportedly be playing these on its platforms. Weird. Something I predicted back in January, but no one believed. Not specifically this, but that you see AI generations on the big screen and it would look real. Disney CEO Bob Iger said the agreement reflects a push to extend Disney's storytelling through generative AI while also protecting creators' rights and safeguarding original works. As part of the deal, Disney will become a major OpenAI customer and plans to integrate AI tools across its business operations, including making ChatGPT available to employees. So, Sora and ChatGPT are expected to begin offering licensed Disney character context early next year, marking one of the first large-scale uses of licensed Hollywood IP in generative video. This one's important because On the same day, Disney also issued a cease and desist letter to Google, accusing the tech giant of massive copyright infringement through its Gen AI models. I said this many years ago. Like, for the most part, yeah, these big media companies, small media companies, everyone, you're going to have a couple choices when it comes to generative AI. You either partner, you sue, or you lose money and maybe go out of business. So Disney chose one of each here. They partnered with OpenAI. They invested $1 billion for an equity stake in the company and also granted some exclusive access to OpenAI. Yet on the same day, they sued Google and said, hey, they didn't sue Google. They sent a cease and desist letter. They sued Mid-Journey, correction on that, a couple of months ago. But, ultimately, this is what's going to happen in the long run, especially with copyright and IP. That's much easier to decipher, right? The written word, little hard, right? If you see a Marvel character or Mickey Mouse, a little easier to say, maybe copyright has been infringed here. All right. Our next piece of AI news, little about face from the Trump administration, at least when it comes to their normal policy, but not at all when it comes to AI. So President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at blocking U.S. states from enforcing their own AI regulations, instead calling for one central source of approval at the federal level. So the United States currently has no comprehensive federal law governing AI, even as there's more than 1,000 AI related bills that have been introduced across state legislatures. So yeah, essentially US President Trump saying, yeah, we should govern this at the federal level, but there's no official laws or regulations at the federal level, at least congressionally. So White House AI advisor David Sachs said the order will give the administration authority to push back against what it sees as the most onerous state rules while still allowing regulations related to children's safety. So, tech companies have lobbied for nationwide rules instead of state rules because they said a patchwork of state laws could slow innovation and weaken the US's position against China as firms invest billions of dollars in AI development. And right now, state laws do vary widely. And critics say the executive order undermines state authority to protect residents, with advocacy groups arguing that state level rules fill critical gaps in the absence of meaningful federal guardrails. So, California Governor Gavin Newsom accused President Trump of siding with tech allies, saying the order seeks to preempt laws designed to protect Americans from unregulated AI systems. Yeah, this one, it's really like 3 or 4 states that you would actually need to worry about how they respond to this. One would be, well, California, because that's where a lot of the big AI companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google are headquartered. You also might want to keep an eye on Washington, where Microsoft is headquartered, as well as maybe just New York as well. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of pushback on this. It's probably, if you're looking at it just from a US versus China innovation, it's probably technically the right move just from that angle. But from the safety, consumer protection, you're not going to have a lot, right? Essentially, companies, for the most part, they're going to, right? Like if something happens with AI, there's not going to be a federal, congressionally passed law to hold this up to, right? A lot of people don't talk about this or don't know. I used to be a journalist back in the day, right? So much of what is governing social media right now from a federal legislation standpoint was things passed in the 90s, early internet era legislation, right? To get actual congressionally passed laws across in the US takes a very long time, especially anything meaningful. There's probably going to be some good AI regulation that's passed with other larger bills, but anything meaningful is probably going to take like a decade or longer. So this is just a signal for US innovation. It is a signal for trying to keep up with China. In terms of consumer protections, probably not a good thing, but presumably this will be heading up to higher courts, as I would expect some of the bigger states that I mentioned to object to this executive order. Next piece of AI news: the company that's been known as the open source AI company is now maybe going to be going into closed source. So, Meta is reportedly making a dramatic shift in its AI strategy, moving away from open source AI and potentially going to a proprietary approach, according to reporting from CNBC. So, Meta is reportedly preparing to launch a major new AI model, codenamed Avocado, in early 2026. And unlike previous Llama models, the Avocado variant will be expected to be proprietary, meaning external developers will not have free access to the core technology. Yeah, so right now, if you have a powerful enough computer, you can go download Llama 4, and you can fine tune it and fork it and do what you want with it. But that may not be the case anymore for Meta's future models. So the change in direction follows the kind of lackluster reception of Llama 4 when it was released in April, and concerns inside Meta reportedly about rivals using their open source architecture without restrictions. So CEO Mark Zuckerberg has also been spending billions of dollars in the same way like I drink ounces of water, just like haphazardly, right? Spent countless billions of dollars to recruit and retain leading AI talent, including the acqui-hire of Scale AI and its CEO, now their Meta's AI leader, Alexander Wang, to help Meta catch up with OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic. Meta increased its 2025 capital spending forecast to as much as $72 billion on AI, highlighting the scale of its AI ambitions. So we'll see if this actually plays out. Is Meta going to become a closed source proprietary AI company? I think regardless, we found out that their approach maybe didn't work, right? If you rewind back to around February, March of this year, before Meta released Llama 4, there was a lot of people, not myself, who said, oh, yes, this next version of Llama is going to be state of the art. It is going to be the best model. Open source is going to take over proprietary. I don't think so. Although, you do have to see their impact overall of open source, right? If Meta had not been pushing open source large language models for the last few years, I don't think China would have made open source what it is today. Because yes, you do have open source in some fields competing really closely with proprietary models. And maybe that did even force OpenAI's hand at producing a very impressive GPT OSS open source model. Google has been pushing their Gemma 3 models very, very good. So, even if Meta's strategy of open source models didn't work in the long run, or maybe they'll still continue it, I don't know. It has pushed the space forward, which has helped innovation in general, and it has ultimately caused consumers to win. So even if we're not going to get any more Meta Llama open source, I hope they still keep the Llama name though. Nothing against avocados, but yeah. Maybe they'll continue to do the open source and have a proprietary. We'll see, and we'll obviously continue to cover. All right, next. One little tweet that people haven't been talking about, but if you're a ChatGPT user, like 900 million of you out there, and you like new things, which is a lot of people, this tweet didn't really get a lot of notice. So CEO Sam Altman, right after the release of its new GPT-5.2 model, which we'll be talking about here in a couple of minutes, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman took to Twitter and teased that OpenAI is not done. So in a tweet late Thursday afternoon, Altman said that OpenAI had a, quote, few little Christmas presents for you next week. So if you're confused what that might mean, well, it might mean that Shipmas is upon us. So last year, during what they called the 12 days of Shipmas, or shipping features. If you don't speak geeky AI talk, OpenAI released a lot of new features. So they released finally Sora after teasing it months earlier. They introduced and released their O1 reasoning model, the ChatGPT Pro tier, projects, upgraded advanced voice mode, and more. However, Google kind of grinched them. They stole the show because Google, although OpenAI opted for some heavy marketing and daily live streams and really leaned into it, Google just quietly woke up and chose ship miss violence because I think most close observers noted that Google probably won the late year AI shipping season because they rolled out their family of Gemini 2.0 models, their VO2 video upgrade, their Imagine 3. They upgraded Notebook LM and they announced and released Deep Research, which set off the entire category. So that's led many to wonder, are we going to get the same end of the year flurry this year? And what could be left from OpenAI? So we do know that probably Google is going to be releasing, maybe Gemini 3 Flash and a smaller version of Gemini, their Nano Banana. But what does OpenAI have left? Well, we'll have to see, and we'll obviously be covering it in this week's newsletter. We do know that they've been testing a new image model and some different versions of coding models that they haven't released yet, but not a lot is known outside of that. So could be interesting to see what they release. Speaking of releases and competition, well, Google actually updated and released their deep research and made it an agent on the same day that OpenAI released GPT 5.2. So Google has released a reimagined and improved version of its Gemini deep research agent, a major update powered by its newest foundation model, Gemini 3 Pro. Marking a shift from research reports to embeddable AI research tools for developers. Well, you might be saying, like, why does this matter? Well, Google is opening up its deep research, which is extremely good, to third-party apps now through this new interactions API and the Gemini Deep Research Agent. So what this means, if you've ever used Gemini's deep research or OpenAI's deep research, and if you haven't, by the way, you're just burning money, right? In the nature of wasted time. If your company is not using OpenAI's deep research or Google Gemini's deep research, you seriously stop. Well, start using it and stop not using it. Anyways, what this means by Google releasing this as an agent and opening this up is I think we're going to get a lot of agentic research tools for specific domains, right? It's actually not a saturated market, right? I thought that we would see dozens of domain-specific deep research tools, but maybe with this new update, we finally will. So essentially, Google's very impressive deep research agentic tech is now open for the masses. So, let's say you work in, construction management or something, right? There's probably going to be a construction management deep research agent that is going to be released and likely built on Google's new tech. So Google says the updated deep research agent can handle massive amounts of context and synthesize large volumes of information and is already being used for high stakes tasks like financial due diligence and drug toxicity safety research. The company, this part's important, also plans to integrate deep research, the new version, directly into Google Search, which is interesting, Google Finance, the Gemini app, so updating it there, and also Notebook LM.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. Have you ever wanted to build an app for yourself, your friends, or finally launch that side project you've been dreaming about? Now you can bring any idea to life, no coding background required, with Gemini 3 in Google AI Studio. It's called Vibe Coding, and we're making it dead simple. Just describe your app, and Gemini will wire up the right models for you so you can focus on your creative vision. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
All right. This one's awesome. All right. If I'm being honest, Photoshop might be the app that I've used for the longest. I feel I've been using Photoshop for, let me do the math here, 25 years at least. And now they've teamed up with ChatGPT. So Adobe and OpenAI have joined forces to make Photoshop, Acrobat, and Adobe Express available within ChatGPT. So this integration means now like 900 million weekly active ChatGPT users can now edit photos, design invitations, and even manage PDFs for free directly inside of the ChatGPT interface. So users can connect Adobe apps by going into their settings, going to the app and connectors inside ChatGPT, then selecting and linking their preferred Adobe tool. So once connected, users can simply upload their images or documents, select the Adobe app, and just describe in natural language the edits that they want, right? And this is really cool because it also gives you a slimmed down version of the editor if you want. If I'm being honest, I love Photoshop, but maybe I need like a new computer because sometimes when I open Photoshop, it's like some of these like resource heavy desktop applications, they just crush my computer, right? So now being able to bring in kind of the best of Photoshop into ChatGPT is going to be really impressive in what creatives can do. And this goes back to what I've been saying for multiple years about how large language models, front end large language models, are AI operating systems, right? And this is just goes to that point, right? Being able to work with the tools, the software that you use every day, right? When ChatGPT launched their apps, I think they launched with 7. Now they're up to more than 30, including these 3 from Adobe. And I do assume, even though the GPT store never really took off, I do assume that this will, just because of the way that it handles and shares data, and it keeps that context active within the conversation. So not even just being able to, naturally edit with natural language with the Adobe Photoshop app, but obviously then you can keep the conversation going and chat with a different app, and you can still have that going. So imagine, I don't know, let's just say there's 5 different creative tools. In the future, you'll probably be able to work with all of those and keep the context going. And creative projects that used to take multiple days, you might be able to get done in, I don't know, a couple of minutes just by being able to direct it all with natural language. All right, our next piece of AI news, some big AI rivals coming together. So the Linux Foundation has launched the Agentic AI Foundation, or the AAIF, bringing together nearly every major tech company, AI company, and are setting open standards for autonomous AI agents. So this means that for the first time, direct competitors like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and Microsoft are working side by side to create interchangeable protocols for AI agent development. So the foundation centers on 3 main open source projects for now: Anthropic's MCP, or their Model Context Protocol, Block's Goose framework, and OpenAI's Agents MD standard. So Anthropic's MCP, probably one of the most well-known ones, was introduced last November and is now the core standard for connecting AI models with external tools, data, and applications. Block's Goose was released in early 2025, and it gives developers a structured MCP integrated framework for building agent workflows, combining language models and extensible tools. And then you have OpenAI's Agents MD, which is a markdown-based instruction format for coding agents, and that's been adopted by more than 60,000 open source projects and is also supported by major frameworks like GitHub Copilot and Gemini CLI. So the AAIF, again, that is the Agentic AI Foundation. The member list, it's like a who's who of tech and enterprise. So aside from the companies already mentioned, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, and Block, you also have Amazon Web Services, Bloomberg, Cloudflare, IBM, Oracle, Salesforce, SAP, Snowflake, Hugging Face, Uber, and a lot more. So yeah, essentially everyone has decided, hey, and this goes to more the geopolitical side, I believe, right? Most of these companies based here in the U.S. and saying, well, if you want to standardize AI adoption in general, and if the U.S. wants to keep pace with China, you need these different companies' frameworks to be able to talk to each other, right? And you need enterprises to be able to come in and interchangeably be able to move around these systems and to have agents from different platforms be able to talk to each other and understand each other. So in the same way, the Linux Foundation has set up other kind of open standards across the web. This is another big step forward, and I think a much needed one, right? Because there's so many now agentic frameworks. So I think it's good to have an overarching umbrella foundation in the Agentic AI Foundation to kind of hopefully help create a little bit more cohesion among competitors. All right. In our last big AI news story, OpenAI has released GPT-5.2, and it's pretty good. So, OpenAI's new GPT-5.2 model delivers significant performance gains in writing, coding, reasoning, and more. So, the launch, though, may be more noteworthy than the actual benchmarks and specs of the model. So, the launch follows the internal code red reportedly declared by CEO Sam Altman a few weeks ago, which was a company wide push to prioritize improving OpenAI's models in response to intense competition, specifically from Google and Anthropic, mainly Google Gemini's 3. So essentially, Google has been gaining on OpenAI like crazy. So Google is now up to 650 million monthly active users compared to OpenAI's 800 million weekly active users. I did see that number get reported at 900 million. So we'll have to see when and if OpenAI confirms that. But essentially, over the last few quarters, Google is catching up to OpenAI in terms of just number of users. So it seems like according to reports, at least, that CEO Sam Altman said that they needed to focus just on model performance, that maybe they were getting a little too diluted, focusing on, things like shopping experiences and potential ads and agents and browsers and all these other things. So reportedly, OpenAI had a little bit of a code red. Their last two models were not overwhelmingly positively received in GPT-5 and GPT-5.1. So with GPT-5.2, at least the sentiment so far seems good, right? The vibes overall seem good. The benchmarks are great. So GPT-5.2 is available in 3 versions. You have your Instant, designed for fast information retrieval; Thinking, which is optimized for coding, math, and planning; and Pro, which is the most powerful tier for complex tasks. So here's one that I thought is really telling. Some benchmarks. I'm just going to actually focus on 2. They're kind of specific. They're a little dorky, but I think we really got to talk about them. So OpenAI says that GPT-5.2 Thinking outperformed human professionals in over 70% of tasks on GDP Val benchmark, and also completed them 11 times faster. So if you don't know what the GDP Val benchmark is, it's actually pretty important. It is an OpenAI created benchmark that measures model performance on economically valuable real world tasks across 44 occupations. So essentially, the work that most of us do across 44 applications. And here's why I think it's important to talk about. You might be saying, okay, OpenAI's own benchmark. Well, yeah, of course, they're going to have the best, score on it now. But OpenAI actually released GDP Val back in September. And guess what? When they announced it, they were not the top model. Anthropic actually was, right? Which I think said something about OpenAI, doing good research, right? And putting something out is kind of gutsy to put out a benchmark that says this is showing how well models can do economically valuable work, and then to have one of your biggest competitors be, they actually got the best score. But now GPT-5.2 Thinking wipes away the competition on this specific benchmark. And I think that's important. And I will say, anecdotally, it seems it's really based on 2 things. GPT-5.1 was not good at creating spreadsheets, right? A lot of errors. And they're also not good at creating PowerPoints. They just weren't very good. They weren't effective. They weren't great at storytelling. And I think that's two things in my experience so far. GPT-5.2 is actually really, really good at, right? That's one of the, we did a show a couple of months ago on like, hey, this is like the secret cheat code of Claude. It's the best front end large language model at creating presentations and spreadsheets, which is what so many of us do, right? That is economically valuable work. That is consultants in a nutshell, right? This is what consultants do, right? They go find data, they find these trend lines, connect data, and then put it in spreadsheets and put it in PowerPoints, right? And Claude's been really good at that, but they've maybe been the only front end large language model that's truly excelled at that, right? Google's good in concept, but not good at creating the actual files. And GPT-5.1, not really good at it. GPT-5.2, really, really good, impressive. All right, one other quick benchmark to talk about with GPT-5.2. This one, I'm only going to say the acronym once because it's pretty long. It is the MRCRV2. But let's just call it the 4 needles benchmark. So this essentially measures how well models retrieve specific needles or kind of like hidden information. It's kind of like a needle in a haystack, right? So it measures how well models can find these 4 needles across a long context window. So if you look at GPT-5.1, right? So when you start at the lowest context, so it measures it across 8K tokens to 256K tokens. So GPT-5.1, well, 100%, right? About 100% in the beginning. But as it went on, as the context window grew at 256K, it only got 40% right. And that's a huge drop off, right? And this is something that even people that are, quote unquote, good at using large language models, they don't keep context window in mind, right? I do. I watch it like a hawk. I have token counters. I'm always doing internal needle in the haystack. I created a needle in the haystack, kind of internal benchmark 3.5 years ago before there was an official benchmark. It's extremely important because these models, it's like they're like any of us on a Friday. On a Friday, your brain is fried. You forget things that you would normally remember on a Tuesday morning or, Monday midday. Large language models are kind of the same. There's a lot of things that most of us don't understand about how they work, right? But over the longer context, they start to forget things, hallucinate, and just lack in performance. So GPT-5.2 on this new 4 needles benchmark, nearly 100% retrieval at 256K tokens, which, right, I was trying to read and understand because this just happened over the weekend. Essentially, I saw an OpenAI employee just say like, oh, they multiplied something in a different way. So I have to like go and like do more research or see if I can get someone at OpenAI to be like, what the heck do you mean? Right. But presumably they figured something out internally that allows models to retain essentially their power to retain their knowledge and retention over a longer period, over a longer context window, which is huge, right? Not just for OpenAI, but presumably this is something that will get figured out by the other labs as well. So yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, right? If you run the same kind of tests early on, but you extend the context window and then you run it later, it's usually going to be a lot worse later on. So pretty big update there. Small dorky thing from GPT-5.2. All right, that is all of our big news stories for the day, but let's wrap with our what's new and what's next. So some of these are rumors, some of these are little updates, some of these maybe are bigger updates that just didn't make our, top 8 or top 10 stories for the week. So here we go in bullet point fashion, what's new and what's next for this week. All right, here we go. IBM will acquire data streaming specialist Confluent for $11 billion. Next, ChatGPT will soon support apps in custom GPTs. Not yet, but it is coming. OpenAI quietly started supporting their own version of Anthropic's skills feature. So some tipsters online found that out. We'll share that in today's newsletter. Google released an ultra version of Notebook LM for Gemini Ultra subscribers. just way better rates. And it may be the version of Notebook LM that gets Gemini 3 first, because Gemini 2.5 Pro is still powering Notebook LM. Instacart and OpenAI partnered on grocery checkout in ChatGPT. Mistral released in their DevStral 2 coding model. ChatGPT added an extended thinking feature on its Pro model, which didn't exist before. So now when you go to ChatGPT Pro, there's actually an extended. So you can like stack more thinking on the biggest thinking model. So it's like thinking XXXXL. Then you have OpenAI released its State of Enterprise report, which we State of Enterprise AI report, which we shared about in our newsletter last week. Google teased Gen Tabs, a feature that builds apps out of your open tabs. This one looks awesome. So it's on a sign up right now, unfortunately. But yeah, if you have like 10 tabs open, researching a vacation or something like that, Gen Tabs, part of Disco, will just create an app for you based on that. Really cool. Next, we have Thinking Machines released Tinker, an LLM fine-tuning API. So we finally know one thing Thinking Machines is working on. Claude hinted at full agent mode, aside from a chat mode. So maybe we'll see that. Anthropic is partnering with Accenture to train 30,000 consultants on Claude. This comes right after Accenture had a similar announcement with OpenAI. Like I alluded to later, we might see a Gemini 3 Flash or a Nano Banana 2 Flash around the corner from Google. OpenAI is testing a new image model themselves, which looks much better than their current image model. Time named the Architects of AI as Person of the Year. OpenAI named former Slack CEO as its chief revenue officer. Google added VO-powered video abilities to its Pomeli marketing tool. Pomeli is a great, I think it was just made for small businesses, but it's amazing. By the way, OpenAI launched their OpenAI certifications courses with select partners. But yeah, if you're part of the general public, you can't go get OpenAI certified just yet. And last but not least, Cursor released a new visual editor. All right, that is it for the AI news that matters this week. So remember, we do this almost every single Monday. We cut through all the marketing, all the hype, all the confusion, and hopefully for our busy leaders out there, we say, here's what matters, here's what it means, and here's how you can leverage it. So I hope this was helpful. And as a reminder, make sure, please tune in tomorrow and Wednesday for our 2025 AI Roadmap Rewind. So we did our 25 AI predictions back in January of this year, the culmination of hundreds of hours of research from the year before. So we're going to grade ourselves. We're going to go over it and think of this almost as like a state of AI for 2025 and end of the year recap. But also, we got to hold ourselves accountable. Did we lead you astray, right? A lot of people come up with these crazy AI predictions and none of them come true. I think we're going to do okay. But I mean, we're going to ramp it up even more in 2026. So make sure to tune in for that special 2-part series. All right. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. If so, tell someone about it. Make sure to share this online. If you're listening on the live stream, if you're on the podcast, please make sure click that follow button. If you could leave us a rating, we'd appreciate that. Then go to our website, youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. We just launched a revamped vibe coding experience in AI Studio that lets you mix and match AI capabilities to turn your ideas into reality faster than ever. Just describe your app and Gemini will automatically wire up the right models and APIs for you. And if you need a spark, hit I'm feeling lucky and we'll help you get started. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.